Good evening and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Austin special meeting and work session for Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. Please rise, and I would ask Angelo Minicchio, our councilman, to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And you're muted, Victoria, just so you know, I can't hear you.
What?
You're muted.
Oh, I have to do a call to order. Sorry about that.
Roll
Okay,
call.
Councilman Minicchio.
Here.
Councilwoman Feldman. Here. Councilman Meyer.
Present.
Councilwoman Fields Wheel. Here. Supervisor Levenberg.
I am here.
And just for the record, I will just state that we have noticed Supervisor Levenberg's appearance remotely this evening.
Okay, you stole the first sentence of my announcement, but thank you very much.
Sorry. Figured before we got
Okay,
started.
Maybe I didn't say I've noticed it, but I am participating in this meeting remotely as I recently tested positive for COVID-19. Thankfully, I am asymptomatic, as you may be able to tell. Who's coughing? You guys?
The rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm quarantining in accordance with New York State DOH and CDC guidelines. I am sorry to be missing this second to last town board meeting and a few other events, including the menorah lighting at Market Square, which took place earlier this evening on the third night of Hanukkah, not to mention this past Sunday's visit to the town and village of Ossining from Santa, with help from Austin Police and Fire Departments. Very, very grateful for all their good work. But I have to say it's not a great week to miss. In any case, I will continue staying close to home for the next few days. Although I will say Victoria Caprelli told me I could walk around the block as long as I didn't talk to anybody. Tomorrow, you can celebrate the winter solstice by joining in Make Music Ossining Briarcliff's Ugly Sweater Guitar Flash Mob. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Make Music Ossining Briarcliff Ugly Sweater Guitar Flash Mob at Mike Risco Music. I think that made sense. There's so many words I couldn't figure out where to put the emphasis. At 144 Croton Avenue at 6 p.m. That's Mike Risco Music. What a fun way to ring in the new season. Another fun thing I will be missing. Am I starting to sound like the Grinch? Maybe. If you are still shopping for last minute holiday gifts, this Saturday, December 24th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. is not too late. You can stop by the Austin Arts Council Small Works Holiday Show to gift original art that is affordable. Lots of great artists and art to choose from. I did stop by pre-COVID, so small business on Austin Main Street, Pleasantville Road, or rather small businesses on Austin's Main Street, Pleasantville Road in Briarcliff, and North State Road in the unincorporated town are also ready to go with many, many unique gifts and services that you can gift for all of you last minute shoppers. This week, many of us are well into celebrating holidays and spending time with family and friends. Please be aware that the town and village offices will be closing early on Friday, December 23rd, and closed all day on Monday, December 26th, in observance of Christmas. The community center will also have reduced hours and will be closed all day on Sunday, December 25th, and Monday, December 26th. I also learned this morning that Padres Hispanos is collecting blankets, warm men's clothing, I think specifically. They are at, I forget the exact address, but they're on Croton Avenue across from near Seatown.
Across from Blackstaff, just up the road from Seatown.
Just up the road from Seatown. And I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Town Supervisor Feldman to continue with that announcement if you have more.
Okay, yeah, they are looking for warm coats specifically in small, medium, and large, and children's coats. They are looking for bedding, sheets, blankets. A lot of blankets are needed. They are looking for pots, pans, and utensils. They a lot of new families came without anything warm to wear. So they would very much appreciate any donations, so please dig deep in your club.
Used in good condition, right?
Good condition only, please. I mean, if you have one with the tag, never fit you, you never wore it, well, how nice would that be? But yeah, the used coats are good, but just not overly used.
Great. Are there any other announcements from my town colleagues?
Yeah, I just spoke to our Congressman Mondaire Jones, and he asked that I share some information. He helped secure $6 million for various projects within OSNE, 4 million for Route 9, and 2 million for Garden of Dreams project. So just wanted to pass that along for everybody.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great news indeed.
And one last minute thing, the Oxman Toy Drive did well. Thank you for everybody who donated. Y'all got started late, but you know, in the end, we pulled it together. And Toys for Tots, I believe, did well too. If there is a family who is in need of something for their child, you can reach out to Mary Pfeiffer at the Holy Spirit Church on Spring Street, and she will get you signed up to get your child what they need. So Mary Pfeiffer, Holy Spirit Church on Spring Street. Anybody can go and say they have a need and get something for their child. So.
Great. Thank you so much. With that, I think we're going to get into our resolutions for our special meeting. Leave it to.
Personnel appointment tabled from our December 13th legislative session. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining appoints Elizabeth R. Feldman, Austining, to the position of town supervisor for the remainder of the second year to end December 31st, 2023, of the 2-year term left vacant by the resignation of elected town supervisor Dana Levenberg, effective January 1st, 2023.
So. Second.
So with a bit of not so fast, I have a couple of comments. So first, before we actually vote, I just want to offer my congratulations to our soon-to-be incoming supervisor, Liz Miller Feldman. I am sure you will do great work on behalf of our community, as you have done in your 7 years as a town council member, including a couple as deputy town supervisor, as in right now. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to our community and to being an excellent member of Team Town. We have done a lot of great work together, and I know you will continue moving us forward sustainably. So with that, if somebody would like to call the vote, please feel free to do so.
So moved.
We
All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
I abstain.
abstain. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank
Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to thank the board for their confidence in me, and I look forward to being able to serve the town on a full-time basis. To the best of my ability, working in tandem with this wonderful board. And I know we're going to continue the work that you've been doing, sustainability, equity, and all the wonderful things. And I'm very much looking forward to it. So thank you.
Again, thank you for stepping up to take on the task. It is exciting and wonderful and complicated and intense, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it as much as I did. Okay, next up, we have another related resolution.
Personal resignation. Resolved the town board of the town of Austining accepts with regret the resignation of Elizabeth R. Feldman from the position of town council person effective December 31st, 2022.
Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So now that you've been entrusted with these new responsibilities, we accept with regret, just a little in this case, your resignation from your town council seat to assume the role of town supervisor, and the board will discuss shortly how the vacancy will be posted and filled. Am I allowed to vote on this one? I don't know. Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes.
It's effective December 31st, so I would say yeah.
Okay, in that case, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Do you have to abstain from voting on your own resignation? I don't know. Curious about Okay, in any case.
As long as we have a quorum.
All good, all good, all good. Okay. All right. Next up,
Last one. Resolution law number 9 of 2022, amendment to chapter 47 of the town code with respect to deputy town clerk and deputy receiver of taxes residency. Whereas in order to find and retain qualified individuals to serve in the roles of deputy town clerk and deputy receiver of taxes, including those individuals already serving in said roles and experience in town operations, who may need to relocate for a variety of personal reasons, the town board finds it in the best interest of the town to expand the residency eligibility for these positions, which are integral to orderly town operations. And whereas the town board has adopted similar provisions for a variety of other town officers, and whereas when feasible and practicable, the town board will give preference to town residents when there is a vacancy in these positions, but with the flexibility of being able to expand the applicant pool beyond the town when need be. And whereas the town board held duly noticed public hearings at its regular meeting on Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, in the first floor conference room of Town Hall, 16 Croton Avenue, and via video conferencing, and members of the public having the opportunity to attend and be heard. The public hearing was closed on December 13th, 2022. And whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the town board for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution. And now therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby determines this action is not subject to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, as it will not affect the environment. And be it further resolved, the town board, after due deliberation, finds that it is in the best interest of the town to adopt said local law. And the town board hereby adopts local law number 9 of 2022, entitled Amendment to Chapter 47 of the Town Code with respect to deputy town clerk and deputy receiver of taxes residency. And be it further resolved, the town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting into the local law book for the town of Ossining, to publish said minutes in a newspaper published in the town, if any, or in such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having a circulation in such town, and affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and to file a copy of said local law with the Secretary of State of New York.
do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this law mirrors some similar laws that we adopted for other positions this year, last year, not even exactly sure. Opening up the talent pool when there are vacancies in these positions like we currently have for deputy town clerk. Is there any discussion or any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay. All
Roll
those,
call.
oh, wait, you rubbing your nose? Does that mean that you have? I thought Councilwoman Twill was like going like that, so I didn't know if that meant she had a question. It's hard to see from here. Nobody has a question
at all?
No, I'm not giving you the high sign either.
I can barely tell. I mean, even if I put my glasses on, it doesn't help. You're just far away. Okay. All those in
You're good.
favor?
Okay, so
It's a roll call vote.
Oh, it's a roll call. Okay, roll call vote. Go ahead.
Okay, Councilman Minichio, Councilwoman Feldman,
Aye.
Councilman Meyer,
Aye.
Councilman Fields Wheel,
Aye.
and Supervisor Levenberg.
Aye. All right, what's that? This is so frustrating. I'm sorry, my screen is just very frustrating to me today. Okay, with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn to work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. So first up on our agenda, we received additional written comments on the latest version of the Artist Communities Local Law. I'm going to turn it over to our town council to walk us through some of those comments and or suggestions for any modifications that you might have for us so that we can discuss a little bit and then decide how we want to move forward.
So as the supervisor mentioned, we did receive certain written comments. As the board likely recalls, one of them related to the residency and occupancy that takes place on the property. Part of it is temporary residency for artists who come in order to utilize the benefits of the facility. And that's the primary residential aspect of it. However, the local law as presented also contemplates the possibility of having permanent residency for full-time staff of the whatever artist community is operating. So that's limited to a maximum of 15% being full-time staff. The rest is for temporary occupancy for artists. There are restrictions on the size of the permanent residences to be studios 1 and 2 bedrooms, and less than 50% can be 2 bedrooms. One of the suggestions that had come from the planning board, and which this board received favorably and which was incorporated into the law, was that the density of the residential housing could not exceed what would be permitted in the zoning district if the property were being used as residential housing. So this is a special permit use in residential zoning districts. There's a minimum of 5 acres that's needed for this. So depending upon what residential district that's located in, that would dictate what the potential residency could be, both for temporary and permanent housing related to the use, as long as it didn't exceed that. So if it was, for instance, an R30 zone where you require 30,000 square feet, then, giving the applicant or the property owner the benefit of a hypothetical subdivision that was just to, that exact minimum, how many residential properties could you get out of that? And that was a recommendation that was made by the planning board, and which was incorporated into the law. And the suggestion was that there be some built-in additional density of 125%. And the rationale was because a lot of these units are going to be smaller than traditional single-family homes. So a lot of them are going to be more dorm type style where it's not, or a hotel room, something like that. Of course, the permanent housing is going to be permanent, but it's also going to be smaller. Kind of the other side of that rationale is that these the residences are only one of many of the uses that are going to be taking place on this property, which we'll get to in a moment. So what was suggested is having it be allowed to be 125% the density of what would be allowed by the zoning district, as opposed to what the planning board had recommended, which was you couldn't exceed it. So basically 100% of what would be allowed in the zoning district. So there's rationale that goes either way, as far as I'm concerned. And so, we thought it would be appropriate to have a discussion with the board and see what your feedback was on that.
Do we have a number for, so 5 acres at R30 is what, 10 houses?
I would say less than 10, because I think an acre is about 42,000 square feet, somewhere around there. So at
8 houses.
R30,
And how many bedrooms does the planning board assume is in that house?
I don't think the planning board was really assuming it. It was more about, the residency of who was going to be there, as opposed to the number of bedrooms. Then you get into a much more complicated
Right.
analysis of where do you cross the line of, obviously a dormitory isn't going to be the same as a
Yeah.
4-family house, but then, the alternative would be, then we could put maybe something in the law that says that these residences have to be dormitories or something where it's not because right now there's nothing in the law that regulates how big the temporary residences can be. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering, so a 5 acre property would, how many houses, how many residents does the planning board anticipate that being?
It would be about 6 is what I would
Oh,
think
so
off the
one
top of
per
my head.
resident?
One,
No,
well,
I mean, how many
These
people would
houses.
they, yeah, I'm just, if it's the same density as it would be a single, and I'm sorry, I didn't bring up.
I would
math
say,
earlier.
I would say six units, or give or
6
take.
units, and how many people would you guesstimate, a family of 4 is your typical, so
Yeah, that would be something, that would be a question for a
Right,
planner.
so,
I
yeah,
guess
so-
like 4.2 or something like that
Right,
is
so,
what we're
you know, for
generally using
argument's
these
sake,
days.
you know, say that's maybe 25 for 5 acres. For a small one, and, you know, we have very large ones in town, I don't, small ones proposed, I don't know. I know the minimum lot size is 5 acres. So that would be, you know. Possibly 25 residents where, you know, a bigger property that's like 25 acres would be, you know, 125 residents. Allowed.
If you're doing it
If I'm
based
doing it
upon
based on-
average occupancy, yes.
Right, well, that, yeah, I'm trying
And
to
that, I think
understand.
that's part of what the planning board was trying to get at,
Right,
which is, you know, because you don't know how many people are going to be residing in each
house,
unit.
right.
There's currently no restrictions in the law as to what the size of those units could be.
Okay.
As I understand it, generally for the temporary units, they are more akin to a dorm or a hotel. And so if the board is inclined to give some additional buffer into what the residency density can be, I would recommend putting something in there that confines how big those temporary units can be.
I really hadn't even contemplated building outside. the current. All right,
Well, I mean, like if somebody wanted to, I mean, I think that like, I'm just trying to think of like the Edna St. Vincent Millay or like some of those other, some of the other artist communities. They have like little cabins. It's kind of like Senasqua Park or something like that, where you have like
right,
little bunks, you know.
lean-tos
So-
or something.
I mean, it could be different, you know, theoretically, you could have different types of small housing. You might still call them bunks. Like that's kind of what when I went to sleepaway camp, we called it a bunk. So it's still a bunk, but I don't know, you know, if we're thinking of more like an apartment style, where everything's in one big house, like an inn kind of thing, or, you know, if you're thinking of more of separate structures, you know, and I don't really think that the planning board's recommendation is unreasonable. I think 100% is reasonable.
I do too. And now I'm wondering if we shouldn't define, you know, how big these units should be, or at least some of them.
I think part of it goes back to what I said earlier, that this, you know, when you're talking about
50%
single family
cheaper.
homes, that's what the primary and exclusive use of the property is. Here, residential is just one of many aspects of these uses. So, you know, just because, as Councilman Feldman was saying, you know, whether you have one person or you have 4 people, or how that gets distributed based on, you know, the number, the definition of a household, or how many people are residing there. You're also going to be having other people there for different types of uses.
So to classify them in square footage, give them a layout that way, or do we have to define it by apartments like studio or?
Well, I think, you know, to define it as studio would certainly limit the residency. I think also inherently, the way we were originally thinking about it, each artist was going to have their own space, right? So it was never really contemplated having families or other children, spouses, that type of thing involved in this. And that's something we could certainly consider and look into. There are different ways we could have our planner and building inspector look at it. I think what's more significant is where you want to go with the density, because if you want to leave it at 100%, then, you know, it doesn't matter how many units there are as much. Although I guess you could possibly have more people in it, the larger they could potentially be. So I think that if there's a goal to kind of regulate from the outset the number of residential people and units on the property, those would be useful tools to put into the law itself.
I want to get clear on something. The purpose of having these residencies is so that the artist can remain on the property while they are creating art or they're showing their art like within the property.
That is how I understand.
Yeah, okay.
Or collaborating
So-
on the project.
Or
Okay.
performing their
So-
art, or teaching their art. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces.
Right, okay, so in my mind, we want to support these artists. But I think that we support them as an individual. You lose me on the whole notion of having. You know, their families be on the property, like, I don't see, and that brings in the density question to me. I don't see why we need to support their residency beyond the singular artists themselves. So in that sense, you know, I'd rather keep it, and I foresee it as the same idea what you're saying, like kind of like a dorm type of property where each artist has their own room and, you know, like we're supporting them to be on the property so they can share their art with the community, like that's what we want them there for, but that's.
Yeah,
don't-
I think that some of the bigger residents might be for the people who are working there and supporting,
Working there.
living on the
full-time.
property like a caretaker or.
Oh, that's different, okay,
Yeah,
executive
so I
or
think
something
that that's the, you know, like, you
So
know,
that's kind of the distinction
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is in the law currently,
okay,
is that there is a size limit on the residencies for the permanent occupants,
Okay.
the employees.
yeah,
Right now, there isn't any sort of restriction on the occupancy for the temporary. And, you know, I don't know that people come with their families, you know, I'm not intimately
they
familiar
could.
with that. But this does bring up that type of conversation about how many people you could have in one of those rooms.
Right.
If it's not
yeah.
regulated as to size by
Right.
square footage or number of occupants or something of the
Yeah,
like.
I think we need to do that because then you're looking at people that are taking a temporary situation and making it less temporary if they're bringing their families with them, so.
There is something in
I-
the code.
What is considered temporary? What's the?
That was what I was going to get to. Right now, the way the proposed law reads, it's for a maximum of 1 year. So that's a question for the board as well, is if, you know, if that's something that you want to see reduced in some capacity.
Well, I hear what Jen's saying, but I guess I would take a little different approach perhaps with a single parent or somebody with a small child or something along those lines.
Plus, if you're gonna be there doing, if you're doing art for a long period of time, you know, you want a spouse to come and go or whatever, I mean, I don't think you want to regulate that. I do, you know, it is possible the year is an awful long time for a residency. I can't say that I can think that there's a lot of them, but I suppose, you know, there might be a few people who would spend a year in artist residency. I guess the idea is to not be so restrictive that somebody couldn't, but you know,
I think up to a year is reasonable in each community with, you know, dole out there. Yeah, I think, when we have in town, does month-long ones for dance troops and, you know, longer ones for sculptors or, you know, but I don't know. But
okay.
I think we no more than a year, definitely.
Yeah,
Should be 12 months consecutively, right? Because then they get 6 months, they get a month off, go back, another 6 months. 12 months consecutively.
I don't know why.
That's something that the board wants to consider. I'm not, yeah. I'm
No,
not-
I mean, they could come for one summer break, you know, if it's a college student, and then maybe another summer break. So I'm not opposed to breaks in it,
If this word temporary, right? It's short term, right?
right?
Under a year.
Now I'm wondering if, you know, they would put school kids in the school.
well, that's what I was.
That's where you were going, I know.
That's where I was going.
So putting kids in the artist community.
Well, if there are kids living in the 2-bedroom residence, why do you need 2-bedroom if you don't? Whatever.
Well, I think that may also be the situation where you have a caretaker or something that might be a little bit more long term.
Well, at that point, there's a reason why they are living there full time and
Right,
that they may have families.
They may
And
have
so
families,
I think it is appropriate to treat them differently. than,
No, absolutely.
than the
They're there
temporary
permanently.
Right.
lodging for,
Exactly.
yeah, for artist residencies.
Right. So they could have, yeah.
So just to,
Moving
just
on.
to,
Just to nail us down somewhere. Nail us down somewhere. Go ahead.
so please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the consensus of the board is to leave the density at 100%. We can try to, I can speak to the building inspector and the town planner and see if there's some mechanism to put some sort of
Number.
restrictions on the size or occupancy of those temporary residencies, keeping in mind, as Councilman Meyer mentioned, potential extenuating circumstances with single parents, or as the supervisor mentioned, if you have a spouse who wants to visit, we're not, the goal of this isn't to be overly stringent, but it's also to make sure that we don't end up with an apartment building.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, like, we want them to have a comfortable place to live while they are sharing their art with our community.
Right.
And when that's over, they can move on.
Understood.
Yeah.
To their next artistic endeavor.
Beak.
Could be Hudson.
Okay, so the next item that was suggested. There are already restrictions on outdoor uses related to these art-related events. What was recently suggested is that there may be indoor uses that are characterized as accessory and incidental to the artist community use, but that could be very broad because it basically, the concept is it's anything that is money generating for the nonprofit use. So if they want to hold fundraisers, galas, meetings, private parties, weddings, and other occasions, gatherings, or events that may not be art related, then those events are allowed to be held on the property as part of this, as accessory and incidental to this artist community use, subject to certain proposed restrictions, including that they don't exceed 100 attendees, that if there are more than 75 attendees, then there can't be more than 10 of them per year, that they have to comply with the fire and building code standards, which would be the case no matter what, that they provide the town with notice of any event more than 75 people, no less than 30 calendar days before such event. So my concern with this is that it pretty much would authorize an event venue for under 75 people. For some size properties and for some size facilities, that may be appropriate and no big deal. My concern is not knowing where that line gets drawn and how that would actually be enforced and regulated. So
an artist community that's on 5 acres would be a much bigger challenge than an artist community that's on more than 5 acres.
Yeah. But
And
that's what
we
this-
can't regulate that once this law is drawn. This applies to all artist communities on property 5 acres or more.
I mean, we could start trying to draw those distinctions, but that gets challenging too, right? Like you can hold events of 40 people on 5 acres, you can hold events of 50 people on 6 acres,
Yeah.
what the goal, as far as I understand it,
Make
of
it
what we're trying to do here is to make it easier. And so over legislating is one thing, but also not being able to regulate and enforce is kind of the alternate challenge that we're facing.
And we get to reevaluate this.
It's a local law, so you guys can bring
change
it back
if it's not
up.
working.
Yeah, you could bring it back up again, but anyone that any property or any artist community that begins operating under an existing law would likely then be grandfathered.
Okay.
I mean, I think that there's kind of some sort of a middle ground, though. I do think that many art venues, do have opportunities. And, we certainly know of one in our midst that that serves many not-for-profits. So maybe we can find a middle ground where we offer, allow certain events that are held by not-for-profits to take place. But then anything else would really need to go through the standard special event process through the, going through the recreation department.
And that's an important point that I failed to mention, so thank you. It doesn't mean these events can't happen. It just means they would have to get a special event permit, which is something that the town board enacted previously to be able to keep tabs on when these larger type events are happening, if you're going to need municipal resources, and if it's a use that is turning into a different kind of use than what was contemplated. So I think that's a positive distinction that the supervisor mentioned.
Okay, and we're talking about indoor events, not outdoor events with amplified music that would.
Well, that's a distinction that I think would also have to be made, because the way these proposed changes were suggested, it created a very broad range of what could be considered accessory and incidental. So I think based on the feedback I get from the board, we're either going to have to make that a more narrow use, which, as the supervisor suggested, could be limited to other not-for-profit events. Or we're going to have to put greater restrictions on outdoor accessory and incidental uses, because that is a separate issue that was already contemplated in the law in the form of temporary staging facilities, tents, gardening, walking trails, benches, fields, orchards. So what was already contemplated as outdoor uses and accessory structures was very much related to the artist community use. Now there's the suggestion that these indoor accessory uses may be much broader. So we just have to make sure there's consistency. And it's certainly possible.
I mean, I wouldn't want events, to spill outside, outside and have, the amplified music and beyond what the neighbors. I don't want it to be overburdensome for the neighbors to have, events constantly that don't have anything to do with art related event. You expect when you're living next to an artist community. But they're.
And that's really the struggle with this, it's the practicalities of it, what's actually going to happen.
But aren't they
versus what
asking for
this is allowed.
indoor? They're asking for indoor events. They weren't asking for outdoor events. Didn't you? That's what you just read. Did I get that?
Well, there's already an existing provision that deals with outdoor events and has a concept of what outdoor accessory uses and structures is. So if we're changing what an indoor accessory use is, then we need to make sure they're consistent with each other. That's all.
Again, I think that we should agree to allow maybe like 10 not-for-profit events per year without a special permit indoors. And everything else would have to go through the regular recreation process.
Okay, so outdoor events, I think, shouldn't have to go through the regular recreation department.
Shouldn't?
And indoor events, yeah. Should.
What?
Well, there are currently, and we have a separate provision that's already been established and isn't proposed to be changed that deals with temporary outdoor art related events.
Right,
So
and they have.
they can't be outdoors after certain hours. The board actually discussed this.
Right, so that's fine.
And thought it would be appropriate during the summer on the weekends, to
Right,
let them
and to
stay
let them stay
outdoors.
with the theater. Yeah. we
Yeah,
just
that
did
was, that was
That's
a
all
recent
fine. Yeah,
discussion.
that's all fine.
We're just talking about indoor events.
And as long as they comply with the occupancy laws.
Right, and that was something that we had for the outdoor events, and I think we can relieve or carry over into the indoor events. One of the important points was, you want to make sure you have the parking on site to support that type of use.
Do we cap the amount of outdoor events?
I don't think so.
But those are, so those, so
Those are
it's so
art-related.
complicated. They're art-related events.
We're
So-
really just talking about non-art.
Yeah,
Are they
there's a lot of
competing?
moving parts.
Unlimited, not-for-profit events. And then special permits have to come back to us to get,
They would go through the
they'll
recreation
go to the recreation
department.
department, or we could put a number on it, like the supervisor said, for 10 profit events, not-for-profit events, and then still come.
I honestly don't have a big problem with the not-for-profit events. It's,
Me neither, I can.
it's, you know. it's,
Just
you
to
know,
be clear, it's
numerous-
not, I just want to be very clear, the artist communities, generally artists and residents communities are all going to be not-for-profit.
Agreed,
We're talking about, I just want to make sure that it's clear. We're talking about when other not-for-profit
Right,
organizations
exactly.
want to host an event. I just want to be
exactly.
clear about that. Okay, that would be sort of counted within some number where an artist community wouldn't have to go seek a special event permit. For everything else, they have to seek a special event permit outside, some sort of, whatever number, once a month or 10 a year or whatever we decide. And then everything else, they're going to still need to go through the process.
That's fair.
And just to be clear, if it was an event that would not have necessarily required a special event permit, the application fees are waived. So there's an accommodation to them. It's basically just to make sure there's the appropriate oversight to make sure there isn't municipal resources. So that if the town gets calls, hey, what's going on? The town has a mechanism to know about it. And that there's some sort of monitoring of just how many of these type of events are happening. So that it does not become a strictly event venue, which under these proposed changes, it could be.
I'd say you want, you don't want 3 weddings a weekend.
Right. Yes, and like I said earlier, there's one thing about what feasibly would happen. There's another thing about what this law as proposed and drafted could feasibly allow. And you don't
Yeah,
want to
they're not-
get stuck trying to backtrack into it. It would be my recommendation.
Okay, just to be clear, this is a work session. We don't recognize anybody in the audience when we're having work session discussion. So I see that somebody had their hand up, and I'm sorry that we're not able to
okay.
recognize you.
The public hearing on this will be continued at the meeting next Tuesday night, December 27th. Same time, same place.
At which time the
So-
board is allowed to comment. Thanks.
So just to try to summarize what I'm hearing from the board on this issue. The board appears to be pretty comfortable with having events hosted on behalf of other not-for-profit organizations. But anything that isn't a not-for-profit, any sort of, I'll have to think about the characterization and how to frame it, but if you're having any sort of private event, baptism, weddings, birthday parties, stuff like that, then the property owner would have to go through the special event permit process.
And just to be clear, that's not for an art-related event.
Yes,
Bethany
That's-
is having, or even
yes,
some
Yeah, not for- yeah,
related- or even a
non-art-
related group to Bethany if the Guggenheim is coming.
or
in
any artist
sponsored-
community.
Right, that's related to the artist in residence program directly.
Okay. Those were the two
And just to
issues.
be clear, this doesn't preclude an artist community from hosting other events. They just need to go through the regular special event process, which is not that heavy of a lift. It does have an opportunity for those who might see impacts to weigh in to see if the property has been essentially doing what they're supposed to do for other events of that nature. And if that's the case, then it's usually administrative.
Yeah, it's a vetting process. That's really what we're trying to do. It's a vetting-
And an information process.
Right.
Yeah, just so that we can all be on the same page and we can be prepared to, because this is a use that will be permitted in residential districts, so the anticipation
When
is
the
that
neighbors
to-
call and go, what the heck's going on over there? They're
Right.
allowed to do that. You can say, well, yes, they filed a permit and we know exactly what's going on. And we, you know, everybody's looked
Exactly.
at it and yeah, it's within the confines.
Exactly.
Okay, is there anything else, Christie?
No, supervisor, I'm all done.
Awesome. Okay, any other comments? I'm hoping that we can actually put this to rest if we're all good with it. I don't know if after the public hearing, we could theoretically close it. No, yes, maybe?
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay,
So I will, that will be first on my agenda in the morning to get the board a revised local law for your consideration.
fantastic. Thank you very much. I can't remember if there's anything else because I can't see my two screens. Yeah, next up, I think Victoria, we were going to talk about the town board vacancy that we will be realizing on January 1st. And if you could share your screen to show the board a draft posting that you had prepared for a vacancy. And this was something that we prepared last year for when we had a vacancy on the town board. I think if you want to take a look at it, if there's anything anybody wants to tweak, give it a look, see, and we can, if everybody's good with it, we can post it. When will we be posting, Victoria?
We could post it tomorrow. So just, you know, a couple highlights that were of importance to the board last time was, first of all, to provide information to those that are seeking appointment about the election process. So we included that there. Since this seat would be open for election in the coming year. Then also that although all residents are welcome to apply, the board would be giving special consideration to those who live in the unincorporated area of the town. The last time there was a vacancy, there was no member of the board that was on the, you know, resident of unincorporated town. That's not necessarily the case this time around. But just wanted to raise that. And then also, you know, highlighting that the town is an equal opportunity employer and seeking to represent diversity in the board. Right now we have directing interested parties to submit a letter of interest to Martha by 12 noon on Friday, January 6th. So get people through the holidays.
The only thing I would add is gender identity after gender, but other than that, looks good.
An
Okay,
ultimate sentence of, yeah.
Gender identity.
sure, we can have that.
Just part of that little group of,
It does say any other basis prohibited by law. So if we are for some reason
If we're
missing
missing
some
something.
other category of people that we do not discriminate against, it is covered by that.
I mean, I think that even though we have one town outside resident on the board, I do want to leave in that a little
special consideration.
graded area.
That is a special consideration, right? Special, doesn't say
Yeah,
you will not be considered unless, it just said special consideration will be given if you happen to be from
yeah.
living in the unincorporated town. I think that's fair. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
So we can get this
See,
up and out to the world tomorrow.
And
See. How will it go out? How do you guys post it?
So we post it on our website and then we will post it on, we'll share it out in our email blast, which can go out to, we can also send it to our press list as well. So if there's any, you know, press contacts that might pick it up. And then we can also share it out on our social media, just.
awesome. All right,
So we may be looking at a January with 4 board members, but you know, hopefully, once we get the letters of intent in by the 6th, we can start working through those and ideally have someone appointed by the end of January or early February.
I'm good.
Good.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel, personnel, and contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Anybody opposed? Thank you so much for joining us. Believe it or not, we will be back here for a legislative session on Tuesday, December 27th at 7:30 PM, because I couldn't miss one last
You just
meeting.
can't get enough.
Merry Christmas to all of those of you who celebrate. Enjoy the joy of the holiday and make sure you take time to appreciate all you have, and please do share with others. Share the love. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. too. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Raleigh? Okay. Bye.